In this video we're going to look at smart objects in Photoshop, and just so that we can get to grips with the basics before moving on to some of the more complicated stuff later on in another video. Now, the first thing to know about the filters and the effects that we can create from using them is that we need to use them on a pixel layer. So for example, going back to the concept of non-destructive editing, unfortunately this is one of the times where we're kind of forced into making changes to a pixel layer. So for example, if we wanted to say blur this layer, we can choose blur from the menu, Gaussian blur here, and just click OK. Now that's applied that blur effect to this layer, and there's no way at the moment for us to undo that or adjust the amount at which we blurred the layer, because we've actually edited and made changes to this pixel layer. So that's not a non-destructive edit. But let me just go back in the history there and undo that. So just coming back to have a quick look at this filter menu here, you may have noticed there's an option here, Convert for Smart Filters. Now what this does, if I select this now, then we'll get a pop-up here saying to enable re-editable smart filters, the selected layer will be converted into a smart object. Now we can do that from this menu option here. I can say OK. And basically that's converting this layer into a smart object. You can also do the same thing if I just press Command Z to undo that. You can do the same thing by right clicking on this layer and saying convert to smart object. And you can see here the icon changes. It's got that little sort of folded over thing in the corner to signify that's a smart object. Now that we've done that, let's have a look at what happens when we add that blur to this layer again. So same amount there of blur, click OK. And rather than apply that blur layer or that blur effect directly to this layer, what it's done is kind of split it out into some new goodness over here in the layers panel. And so we've got smart filters, and that's kind of like just a way to show the group. Like if we were to add more filters to this layer, we would see the Gaussian blur there, and then like a list of the other filters that we've added. For now we just got the one. So what this gives us here is actually an eyeball that we can enable and disable the Gaussian blur with. So that's really useful there, because it means that we can still edit this layer. So we can turn off the blur, for example, and then make some changes to this layer if we need to, and then re-enable the blur. And that's possible because it's a smart object layer. Now another thing that makes this really good is that we can actually double click on this Gaussian blur here now, and go back and change the amount of blur that we apply. So if we want to make it more blurry or less blurry, we can do that. And we don't have to basically scrap this layer and then redo it, the same as we would have to if this wasn't a smart object. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this short video tutorial. If you like shooting landscapes and you want to learn how to put all these individual tips and techniques that you're learning into a structured 6-step Photoshop workflow, then click the download button and I'll send you my free PDF cheat sheet that lays everything out for you step by step.